Welcome everyone to today's Under the Microscope conversation with our new product manager at Scintica, Carol Wendel. Today we hope to catch up with Kara, learn a little bit about her background in research, and then talk a little bit more about the product that she specifically represents, which is the Aspect Imaging M-Series Compact MRI system. My name is Tanya Coulthard, and I'll be walking through some questions with Kara during our conversation today, and I manage our imaging division here again at Scintica. Welcome, Kara, to the conversation today.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. I'd like to start just with a little bit of background about yourself, your experiences that you've had throughout your academic career, and then your transition, obviously, to us here with Scintica. So maybe start with a bit of background about where you went to school and some of the work that you did during your undergrad and PhD.
So I initially did my undergraduate degree at University of California, Riverside, and I worked in a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder lab and did some neuroscience research there, investigating transgenerational effects of consuming alcohol during pregnancy. I then did my PhD at the University of California, Irvine, and I studied how early life experiences shape brain circuits.
Really interesting. Can you help us understand a little bit of the equipment and the different tools that you used to complete the research that you did?
So in my PhD, I focused mostly on MRI, as well as a little bit of histology and some different techniques like viral tracing. But most of my PhD centered around MRI.
Perfect. And I guess what were your thoughts and what MRI contributed to the work that you're doing and any challenges perhaps that you faced in using the equipment that you did during your research?
So MRI, I think, contributed quite a lot to my PhD, and in general, I think MRI has quite a lot to information to provide that's really critical for research. One thing that I really liked was that you can use it both in clinic as well as in preclinical research, which I think creates a really valuable tool. So during my PhD, I worked in a translational center, which did both research in babies as well as research in preclinical models. So working on the MRI side, it was really nice to be able to kind of connect the research that you're doing in preclinical models and applying that to really what we see in humans as well. Some of the challenges with MRI, though, can include just the level of knowledge that you need to really operate an MRI as well as to do the different types of analysis. So with MRI, the research world is your oyster. You can really do a lot of different sequences acquisition and acquire lots of different information through data. But you have to have a background knowledge on that. You also have to have access to an MRI, which a lot of universities may not have, and even every lab may not have the technical knowledge or the expertise to analyze data post acquisition.
Perfect. Did you face any specific challenges in the work that you were doing?
Yes,
I know we've talked about a few, but yeah.
yeah. So I've had some bumps in the road, just like most PhD students. But I was able to work with an MRI system, and over the course of time, kind of learning how to operate an MRI can end up having quite a large learning curve, at least for myself, and takes a decent amount of technical expertise. So, can understand why certain universities have an MRI tech that kind of manages that. It can take a while just to kind of learn the workflow, as well as then being able to troubleshoot and optimize, being on your own to really not only set everything up, but also acquire those images.
So more recently, you joined us here at Scintica to help us with the Aspect Imaging M-Series system. Can you help me understand a little bit of your decision to transition from academia into what people traditionally call industry?
Yeah, so I really did enjoy my time in academic research, and I think it really does provide a valuable contribution. One reason why I switched to industry is I really like the ability to kind of step outside just your field of research. So for me, I had been on some different research projects, but focused mostly on neuroscience. So as much as I love the brain and I'm very passionate about it, but nice to kind of step outside the brain and into the other areas of the body, really learn about different research applications that wouldn't traditionally be exposed to staying in academic research.
Sure. And I know you and I attended one of your first experiences with the M series, and I'm just wondering if you can kind of recount that and how it equates to the work that you were doing also in your PhD.
Yeah, the first time I saw the M-Series with you, Tanya, I was very surprised. Definitely about just the size of the MRI, the fact that it could fit into a existing workspace. That for me was pretty exciting. You didn't really kind of have to have your own dedicated room. There was no cryogens involved, and there was no really cooling needed. So that to me was really kind of mind-blowing. The fact that, you can have a permanent magnet that sits in a lab without really all that infrastructure requirements that most people associate with having an MRI. So that was definitely interesting. Also for me, learning like the workflow and everything, a lot of those steps that took me quite a long time to jump over in my learning curve are all automated, which is I think a huge factor as far as making the M series user friendly. As someone with a bit of background in MR, I think it's easy to train people on, and it's really quite easy as far as learning and being able to train other people as well.
Perfect. And you and I have attended a few trainings together. What has been your experience in working with those of different varying levels of background with MRI? So I know you and I have worked with groups who've done MR physics for a long time, but then also those who really didn't even understand what MR was. And maybe you can kind of go over a few of those examples.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see kind of the spread across the board as far as customers go with their background in MR or not. And so it's typically pretty easy. Our training is only really composed of 2 days. The first day, kind of going over workflow, the background, how MR works, acquiring images. And then we typically let the second day the customers kind of run the show, and we are there mostly for support to answer questions and help troubleshoot. And so just with the short amount of training, it's really interesting to see, people who have never really worked much with MR and just understanding the basic concepts of how images are acquired, positioning the subject within the scanner versus people who are, up and ready to go. They want to edit the sequences. You have everything from people who, need, quite a lot of coaching and explanation, and people who are ready to open up those sequences, adjust the parameters, and really create their own, MRI acquisitions. So you definitely get quite a lot of variability. And because the aspect system is so user friendly, it allows you to kind of wrap that umbrella as far as users go of people who really have no background in MR but are interested in learning, and also those people who really want to, bust open the sequences and make their own
Definitely,
changes.
definitely. I think one of the things that I found very interesting about the system is the ability to have that more advanced person help optimize the sequences, whether that's us here at Scintica or someone within the group or a colleague that has more experience. But then being able to save those sequences as that protocol set so that someone without tremendous experience on the instrument or with MRI is able to acquire the data reproducibly so that when analyzing the data, it's kind of consistent across the board. Perhaps you can go through some of the examples of different types of images that we've acquired on the instrument and what disease pathologies the system is ideally suited for.
We acquire lots of different images. Pretty standard is your T1, your T2, and you can do your gradient spin echo. And then you can also do what are, I think my new favorite is being
Yep.
able to do
Yep.
cine loop images, which allow you to image the heart through cardiac cycle. It creates these really beautiful images that you're able to get quite a lot of cardiovascular information from. So there is definitely quite a lot of capabilities. We have applications so far as MR thermometry, all the way to tumor pathology and volume changes. So kind of a lot of different things across the board as well.
Yeah. One of the things that you and I haven't touched on in any of the trainings we've done thus far, but I've done previously in a previous life when I actually worked directly for Aspect was contrast imaging. And so with the system operating at 1 Tesla as opposed to higher field strengths, it's one more clinically relatable, but then also gadolinium-based contrast agents and other T1 contrast agents do provide that higher signal intensity, allowing us to see, for example, perfusion within tumors. Um, and things like that. Additionally, using contrast agents to be able to track cells, for example, a T2 contrast agent like iron oxide nanoparticles, cells can be loaded with them and then tracking the their location within the body once they've started to hone, for example, if they're injected into the spinal cord, honing in on injury or into the brain, and again, honing in on injury there. So I think there's such a wide variety of applications, and I think, Kara, if that focuses back to one of your reasons for transitioning from academia to industry is to kind of expand um, your understanding of so many different disease areas that our customers do use the system for. I think it's quite, that's part of what I love, is being able to continuously learn about the different research that people are using the system for, and then watching them explore the additional possibilities that we didn't know existed with the system and helping them along the way. Switching gears, just to switch a little bit here, you've kind of taken a different path than perhaps others in academia have taken. So you've done your traditional PhD, you made the conversion to industry. I'm wondering if you have any advice to give to young investigators, young researchers, those who are kind of starting to think about what's next for them.
Yeah, I think one thing that was important for me in my PhD was to really do a decent amount of career exploration, figure out kind of what I felt best suited my skills as far as taking the next step after my PhD. You know, typically a lot of people pursue postdocs to continue that academic research. And I think that's really important, but also knowing that if you want to stay in academic research, go to your postdoc. If it's something that you're not passionate about anymore, or you really want to expand into other fields, you know, looking at what your different career options really are. One of the reasons why I transitioned to industry was because I really enjoy the people aspect, the interaction. As much as I really enjoy spending time with the same few lab mates, I really do enjoy the interaction of different customers every day. My job's different, which I really appreciate, and it keeps me on my toes, and I feel like I never stop learning, but just in a different sort of way to academic research. So I think if you're, in your career path trying to decide what to do, career exploration is extremely important as far as knowing what is your best next step, as well as kind of expanding, talking to people. Networking is really important as far as networking within academic research. Find someone that you really like to work under with their research, something that you're passionate about, as well as if you're looking to go into industry, talk to industry professionals, see what their career path looked like, and kind of see if you can have, something to model off of, which was really important for me, both in when I investigated, going into academic research or industry.
Perfect. And I guess just one final question, a little bit of, I guess, background on Scintica for those of you who are watching and just getting to know Kara. Um, Scintica was founded about 5 years ago as a company to help those who have really well manufactured products to bring them to the markets here in North America and around the world. And so aspect imaging, the system we're talking about with Kara today, is one of those, the M-Series compact MRI. But then we also have such a wide variety of other instruments. And maybe, Kara, you want to expand a little bit on what's within our imaging portfolio, but then perhaps also other products that we have just as a baseline for those who maybe are just starting to learn about Scintica.
So Cintiq has almost every product under the sun. So initially, when I was interviewing, I had quite a time trying to look through the product portfolio, which has since expanded since then. So we definitely have pretty much everything to outfit a lab. Everything, from intravital microscopy to DEXA, all the way to optical imaging. We have quite a lot of imaging products. Also have hypoxia chambers. We have anesthesia systems, surgical monitors. We've got quite a lot of different products, and it's kind of funny because initially Tanya and I found out we had a connection that actually my lab that I did my PhD in had purchased an anesthesia machine from Scintica from Tanya. And so we did actually have an initial connection. And there's some really unique products I liked about that anesthesia system that I had commented to, my colleagues prior to knowing that I was applying to the same company who distributed that product. So
Perfect. Yeah. So I guess anyone looking for other instruments, just reach out and see if we have an option. And if we don't, I think a lot of people here have connections in different industries, and we're happy to connect you with them as well. Um, at this point, I think maybe I'll thank Kara for your time. I really do appreciate you kind of walking us through your history, your path to getting to Scintica, and then providing those watching a little bit more information about the M-Series system from Aspect Imaging. Again, a compact MRI system. It is a permanent magnet, doesn't really require the infrastructure of a high field system, so there's no cooling required. There's a simple 220-volt plug, which really only pulls energy while the system is imaging. There's no heat created, so there's no need to dissipate that heat. With imaging applications from cancer to cardiac, neuro, kind of across the board, we'd be happy to run you through example images and even connect you with potential customers or existing customers that have done similar work to your own. So again, thank you, Kara, for your time. We appreciate it. And feel free to reach out with any questions that you may have. And please join us on our next Under the Microscope conversation.